If you've got grand goals, you want to make a lot of money selling final expense specifically, it's very possible to do it. You just need a structure, you need systems, you need leads, you need training, you need support. And what I'm going to do today is kind of break down what that process is to put into place so that you can visualize on paper what it takes from an activity standpoint daily to make an average of $1,000, and that's free and clear income after you make your sales and cover your expenses. Again, my name is Dave Duford. I own Duford Insurance Group. I train and recruit agents nationally to sell final expense in person over the phone. And if you value mentorship, one-on-one support and training, and you want to sell, not recruit, that's our specialty. Go to davidduford.com/FAQ to learn more. So let's go ahead and jump in. So first of all, why should you care about this? Well, here's the thing. We all want to make a lot of money, but the truth is we need a system and a structure behind it to make it so. And I feel like if I'm able to like slow down and explain the construct of how much activity, how much leads, what to expect from the business, if our goal is to make a significant income of money, be it 1,000 higher or lower, then all we have to do is reverse engineer and come up with the activity required to get the outputs. I learned a long time ago from a friend in the business named Nicholas Frumkin that what matters in goal setting is inputs, not outputs. Okay. In other words, it's your activity, it's your leads, and the time on task to work all of that. If you hit your goal in activity, what you will find over the long term is that you will get a consistent ratio or percentage of closed deals predictably every month to month, week to week even. But you've got to have a system to get there, and you've got to have an understanding of what required activity you need in order to produce those outputs. So number one, when it comes to, even though we talk about in terms of making $1,000 a day, understand it's going to come back to activity. It is an activity-driven business model, final expense, and you got to have one in place to make it work. So let's talk about that activity and the different characteristics of what we're going to discuss. So there's a couple of things that I'll have you guys at home write down and keep track of as we go through this to help you put this together. So a couple of variables that we need to know up front to determine how much work we have to do to make 1,000 a day is, first of all, the average case size. Second is the average persistency. If you're new to insurance, that means how much of what you sell stays for the first year. So that's important to understand. We have to understand what our average commission level is going to be, right? So like not all carriers pay the same amount. Some pay higher than others, some pay lower. And you got to take a weighted average to kind of just get an idea of what to expect. And then you've got to have an average acquisition cost. So what's an average acquisition cost? Well, it's how many leads do I have to buy, assuming I work them appropriately, to convert into a sale? That's going to vary by the type of leads. We'll kind of go into detail on all of this. Also for not just face-to-face, but also for telesales as well. So let's talk about each of these variables here. And I'm kind of writing them down as I go so I can keep track as well. So average case size. The average case size and final expense. Why do we need to know that? Because as we learned earlier in the other segment, that's one of the two variables we need to know to determine commission rate. So if the average case size roughly is $800 in premium, okay? Now, can it be less than that? Sure. I've seen places in the parts of the country with certain agents where they may get a 500 or 550 average. I've seen some agents who have an $1,000 plus average, right? So it can be less than or more than. 800 to me, if you follow what we teach and you sell the way we sell, 800 is about the average considering the variables in play here. So what's the average persistency? So because here's the thing, we can't do a true measurement of what we can expect to earn simply on accounting for every 100% of the dollars made that we're going to expect to keep them all. Things happen. Our clients cancel, they change their minds, they die, and we're going to have chargebacks. I'm not here to say that you can avoid chargebacks. You can mitigate them, you can reduce them, but you need to expect chargebacks to be there. And if you follow a good sales system and you have a good selection of carriers, then I would say you're going to cut out 20% of your total revenue in order to better estimate what your actual earnings are per sale. So in this case, I'll take 80%. We'll come back and do the math here, but 80% of what you write and is approved should stick through the first year, okay? Commission levels. So most of our agents at Duford Insurance Group start at 100% average commission. Some carriers pay a little bit more. There are bonuses that we pay as well, carrier initiated, also agency initiated. But there are some carriers that pay less. We call these guaranteed issue carriers. They pay like 60 to 70%. So you're going to write some of that business with that type of client. There's no way to avoid that. So you have to factor that in. You can't just say everything's 110%. So we take about 100% commission as the average of what to expect each sale is going to be worth in a weighted basis, okay? And then the last thing to be concerned with is what we would call the average acquisition cost. And this is pretty important. An acquisition cost is, well, how much money do I have to spend in leads to make a sale? This will vary depending on what kind of lead source that you use and certainly how good you are working those leads. So first of all, average acquisition cost, I would say roughly a good place to start is around $200 per sale. In other words, you're going to spend about $200 in order to make a sale on average. Okay. There are agents out there like Johnny, who was on a couple of segments ago. I don't know what his numbers are, but he self-generates his own leads. He probably pays $3, $4, $5 per lead. I don't know what his numbers are, but it's probably like half of this, if not less, maybe even less than that. I've known agents that have average acquisition costs of $50 to $100. So somewhere in those ranges, but I want to be more conservative and more realistic and not give you a best case scenario. So I think $200 is all I really need. It could be a little higher, could be a little lower, but let's work with those numbers. So now let's put the math together. So number one, average case size, AP, 800 AP times 100% is what? $800, right? So $800 is the average first year commission, but we have to take out 20% of that, right? Because only 80% of that is going to remain. So $80 is 10%, so 160. So that means I'm going to be left with what? 640, right? Check my math there at home, folks. I think that's right. 816. Yeah. 640. So every sale has an average realistic value of $640. Now, the cost acquisition is $200. So I have to subtract 200 from 640, and I end up with $440. Everybody with me so far? Okay. So I have an average acquisition cost of $440, right? Or my average commission or revenue per sale, not revenue, excuse me, commission, net income is $440. So if my goal is to make $1,000 a day, class, how many sales do I need to make? Pretty simple, right? You take $1,000. That's my goal. And then I divide that by 440. And I get 2.27 infinitum. In other words, I need to make, I would say, I like to round up. I need to make 3 sales a day is what I'm going to say on average to be well over the expectation to consistently make and clear $1,000 in commission a day. Does everybody see that so far? Perfect. Okay. So 3 sales a day is all I need. Well, now we've got the output requirements, depending on the basic math of how to arrive at $1,000 a day. Well, what's the inputs? Back to what we talked about are the most important part of goal setting when it comes to this is what kind of activity do I need? So it depends on the lead source. It depends on the type of leads too as well. So let's take, for example, direct mail. With direct mail, if I'm working face-to-face, that is the premier way to generate leads. For every sale, I expect to have completed 2 presentations. So in other words, I close about half of my direct mail presentations into a sale. So if we do the math, if I want 3 sales a day, how many presentations do I have to make? 6, right? And then what I've seen too, and it varies depending on the agent, if I want to have 6 presentations a day, about half of the leads that I book, half the leads I talk to will book into a presentation. So in other words, I need to work 12 leads a day in order to get 6 presentations in order to book 3 sales. Everybody follow me so far? Pretty simple, right? What about Facebook leads? The close rate's the same. About half your Facebook leads should close. But then the other variable to that is that you probably need a little bit more leads. What I've seen is probably more realistically, you're going to need more like 15 to 20. Facebook leads don't close into appointments as often and usually aren't as high as quality. So you probably need a little bit more to work with in order to accomplish your production goals. So I would say 15 to 20 a day. And then for last on the list here, if I'm doing telesales, then what I have seen, it's almost like a doubling of the Facebook the direct mail face-to-face production. To get 3 sales, a good agent will close a quarter of their completed presentations. So this time they need 12 presentations a day, completed presentations. And then to get that 12 presentations, what was the math I came up with? I think it's about 40 to 50 leads. So if you're working 40 fresh leads a day, 40 to 50 fresh leads a day, then you should be able to get approximately 12 completed presentations is what I would look at. And then out of those 12, close 3. Now, is it always going to be mathematically perfect like that? No. Some days you'll do 6 presentations, close 10 deals. Some days you'll do 6 presentations and close 0 deals. But again, over the longer haul, week to week, month to month, quarter to quarter, especially, these numbers tend to bear out with a little bit deviations either way. And we've seen this time and again with the telesales agents and the face-to-face agents that we've mentored. So a couple of things here that I will cover that are takeaways, and then I'll hit the comments up for questions. Number 1, to clear $1,000 a day in net income, you got to go big on leads. Okay, if you do the math here, if I'm going to do 1,000 free and clear, and that's 20,000 net income, I've got to do 50 leads to 60 leads a week direct mail, probably closer to 65 to 75 Facebook face-to-face. And then for telesales, probably 125 to 150, roughly, maybe a little more. But you notice that I'm not being cheap or small with my lead flow and the amount of money that I'm employing to get it. I am putting into effect a lot of money to get a lot of leads, because that is what's required to make a lot of sales and to get the kind of net income that I want. It's much, much less likely. It happens. It's rare to find somebody who takes half the production and leads, or gets the same production, but with half the leads. There's a few people I can think of that I've been friends with. They're unicorns. And I don't want you to build your business based off of what the unicorns do in the business. There are just some people who are savants. I want you to think of yourself as average or even slightly below average, even if you aren't. To think of yourself in that way actually gives you some advantages when it comes to, well, I got to work harder. I got to put in more effort. I got to see more people. I got to get more leads. It puts you into a position of power to have too many people to talk to. Okay. And then the last point here is it's going to take a lot of work. All right. Notice I didn't say anything about it's easy. Everybody can do this. No, not everybody can do this business. No, it's not easy. It's simple, but it sure as hell isn't easy. And if you're going to make this kind of money, it's going to take more than 40 hours a week. It's probably going to take 50 to 60 hours a week. It's going to take a lot of effort. And you should be happy that it does. Because if it was easy to make $1,000 a day and take 30 hours on average for the average person, guess what? Soon enough, there wouldn't be any competition, or should there be too much competition? The acquisition costs would go through the roof. The carriers would pay less, and there would be no more money in it. So that's why I say to agents, look, embrace the suck. This is a tough business. Don't complain when it's hard. Be grateful, because that thins the herd of your competition and gives you more long-term capability to be successful.